One thing that used to be a staple of the video game industry and has seemed to have disappeared in recent years are commercials that would advertise the titles in a different way other than just showing gameplay and features of what to expect. Really, what I'm trying to say is that advertisers used to use comedy and outlandish tactics to sell their products. And surprisingly, Nintendo and Mario were no different. Where today, I want to look at the very best commercials from every single game, explaining what makes them so great, and trying to find any backstory to them that I can. Oh yeah, and before I get started here, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. The very first game to come out in the franchise is Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, where I'd have to say the best commercial made for it definitely comes out of the Australian market, featuring a Crocodile Dundee-like character who comes across a lost tribe of people. For some unknown reason that makes absolutely no sense, these savages had made a young kid king because he's amazing at Super Mario Bros., probably defeating every single person in their village, which didn't even look like it had electricity at first glance. I'm guessing after the kid wins that the adventurer is killed as he can't compete against such a champion. And at the end, you see everyone lifting him up, celebrating his victory. This would definitely be a questionable ad in 2024 for many reasons. But most importantly, it doesn't even really make you want to play Mario. The next game to be released on the NES is the Western version of Super Mario Bros. 2, which has a couple of very unhinged commercials that I want to look at, starting with the Sultan/Snake Charmer who can't control his jars. When he tries to summon his Cobra out of one, a radish appears instead, and a struggle ensues that looks a lot like the game's plucking mechanic. Now, this is a Japanese commercial that was aired on TV in 1987, meaning this is actually showing Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which was a Mario clone that was made at that time, that was later released in North America as the NES sequel, as the Japanese one was deemed too puzzling for Western audiences. The second and even crazier one also aired in Japan, but oddly this time actually advertises the Western version of the game. Eventually released there on the Satellaview Super Nintendo Online add-on, here titled Super Mario USA. I have no idea what Birdo's saying, but it's just way too seductive. And the egg blasting at the end is just the disturbing icing on the cake. The final of the original NES trilogy is Super Mario Bros. 3, that came out in 1990, where there's two commercials I found that I thought would be great to show off, starting with a French one that perfectly blends gameplay with cartoon cutscenes. I think this is a great way to show characters and enemies in another way other than their 8-bit forms. And as a kid, if this came up on TV, I would be stuck looking at it for hours. The other is the Japanese commercial that showcases a short cartoon as an introduction to this entry, with our mustachioed hero going through a castle full of hazards, enemies, and Koopalings in his pursuit for the princess. Oddly, it doesn't feature any gameplay, but Mario was such a big name at that point that the game would sell regardless of whatever they advertised. Up next is a commercial for Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. Like I said previous, also known as Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, where here, a father and daughter play the game together, which is a family trope that Nintendo still uses to this day. What's pretty accurate is that the girl rages over how hard the game is, which definitely is true, as this title has very tricky mechanics, intense platforming, and secrets that literally take hours to unlock. I also thought it'd be interesting to include a few Super Mario All-Stars for the SNES commercials, as that game was heavily advertised upon its release, starting with the Trippy one from the USA. This one's all about the intense narrator and the hilarious images of Mario interacting with real-life things and events.
Mario, so it's bigger Mario, better Mario, in your face Mario. It's Raccoon Mario, Mario throwing fireballs, Mario hurling turnips, Mario negotiating an arms deal. Okay, maybe not. It's
just as a bit of a random fact, in a blink and you'll miss it moment, comedian John Michael Higgins makes an appearance, winking and drinking a cup of coffee. Also, Ohio memes in 1993? Way ahead of the times, Nintendo. The other I want to show off also came out in America, that here for some reason features a reptile boy. who is ecstatic that a copy of Super Mario All-Stars comes free with a purchase of a Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm really not sure why they thought something so creepy would be appealing to children, but it seems like back then they really leaned into a theme, whether it worked or not. The first handheld game that came out in the franchise is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, which only has one specific commercial I want to look at, and a claymation one made for American TV. Here, things start off with UFOs attacking what appears to be Washington, D.C., with Mario flying in on his plane to try and stop them. Then transitioning into a scene where Mario's stomping on some sort of mummy, moving then to Mario's underwater face-off against a giant tentacle monster, all ending with Mario and Daisy on top of a car, waving goodbye as a couple drives off into the sunset. Mixed in while all this is playing is short gameplay footage of this rudimentary experience. Although, I could see at the time how this would look groundbreaking, and if I saw this, I definitely would have begged my parents to buy me the system and game. Next, we're gonna look at a very strange commercial that was made for Super Mario World in the early 1990s, where in Japanese, Mario sings about this brand new title, and it's home here on the Famicom.
Famicom. Konnichiwa, konnichiwa, Mario mo Konnichiwa, konnichiwa.
This again is in a sort of claymation style that I guess was just really popular during this time, with some 3D graphics mixed in where they could. Where after his little performance, Bowser is awoken and burns Mario to a crisp for annoying him. I'm honestly just a sucker for any time Mario actually talks, going as far as even giving Chris Pratt a pass for his voiceover work. Although, I am very skeptical about Garfield. Before we move on, I do want to briefly look at one American commercial for this title, which quick cuts to close-ups of players' faces looking either goofy, scared, or confused. I'm not sure exactly what would make these people emote so vigorously, but in the end after they play, they become happy and run off full of enjoyment. In the handheld Super Mario Land sequel, also for the Game Boy, there's two commercials I want to showcase, both with drastically different styles. Starting with the Japanese one, that again involves some sort of claymation. Here, the story of the adventure is being told through the pages of a book that have come to life, showing you places and moments like the tree zone with its insects and birds, the turtle zone with its gargantuan whale, the macro zone, which is represented by a cute house with a small ant checking everything out, a mechanical Mario, I guess is from the game's Mario Zone, a pumpkin that opens to reveal a skull and bats flying from it, the moon that sneezes to produce a star, and finally, Mario and Wario making their presence known, trying to get you to buy the game. The other I want to look at is a bit creepy as it features a floating Wario head talking in front of a hypnotic background, trying to cast a spell on you just like he did to the inhabitants of Mario Land. I do appreciate the interesting stylistic choices of how insane they wanted to make Mario's imposter look, but I'm not really sure how this sold any games, as this would have terrified me as a kid, and maybe also would have confused me a bit, as Wario's a character that sort of came out of nowhere with no explanation. The first title to be released with 3D-based gameplay is Super Mario 64 for the N64, having a couple commercials for this one that are definite standouts, starting with the one that transports a young player into the world that is the Mushroom Kingdom and Peach's Castle. Oddly, for the mid-90s, this is extremely well done, and almost makes you feel like this kid is playing through these adventures right by Mario's side. A good idea to sell this new type of environment. The second is actually a milk commercial that ties elements of Super Mario 64 into it, with things beginning with kids playing the game and failing to get Mario to jump up a platform. What's interesting is that this scene was actually custom made for this advertisement, as Mario doesn't interact with the environment in this way, and I think this just shows his need for milk to re-energize himself, showing that he's too weak to even jump. Eventually it seems like the kids get tired of this and go to bed, which is when Mario seizes his opportunity to come to the real world to find the white stuff, which he promptly drinks to power up and become Mega Mario in the game, which again means they went through the trouble of creating custom cutscenes just for this Got Milk campaign. I mean, this isn't actually a thing you can even do, which again means they went through the trouble of creating custom cutscenes just for this Got Milk campaign. And in the end, I think this was effective, as I even remember seeing this on TV back in the day. The next to be released also in the 3D realm is Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, having two commercials that are good for different reasons, starting with the musical one that stars a goofy-looking Mario mascot.
Everyone loves a sunshiny day. We're gonna keep it that way. That's clean is better than dirty, and dirty's meaner than clean.
The song itself is all about keeping things clean, which fits well within this game's theme, as here you have to restore the Isle Delfino after Bowser Jr. polluted it with his magic paintbrush. I really do like the song and dance approach to this one, even if it is a bit random, but honestly I'm here for it and welcome change with open arms. The other one I want to look at isn't as funny, but still is good, where a cute mustache is added to everyday people, being a commercial that came out for European television. Nothing really else to note about this one, but it does show that essentially everybody knows who Mario is just from his facial hair alone, and honestly at this point he's transcended just video games, being a pretty well-known entity now in just regular popular culture. Nintendo would return the series to its 2D roots with the creation of new Super Mario Bros. For the dual screen system. Having one great commercial I want to look at in the context of this video, where puppets and cutouts are used in very interesting ways. Here actors play out a scene in the game with a giant DS system as their stage, with one actor's face being Mario, while he controls a small puppet that acts as our hero's body. As these unusual events occur, you can see at the bottom of the screen a small blurb that states, Nintendo DS sponsors original comedy, which is a nod to how Nintendo spent £1.8 million in the UK to promote the console in different ways that would attract different types of audiences. It's hard to say if this directly worked, but the console was very successful overall, so they definitely were doing something right. Next up is the first space-based entry for the Wii called Super Mario Galaxy, which has a commercial that features the two famous Japanese salesmen who for some reason were the spokespeople for the system. In this one, you see the two promoting the Wii in front of an audience of people who seem to be really into playing this particular entry. Now, this isn't anything to write home about, but it shows that the other commercials that came out for this game were not so great. The second entry in the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii in 2009, where really there aren't any great commercials for this game, but if I guess I had to choose one, it would be the one that shows the mix between the real life and gameplay. This shows people playing the title, while cartoon features from it appear in the foreground and background, where things end off with the entire world becoming Mario-fied. This is really where the trend of people just playing the game being the commercials started being a thing, which I don't really love at all, as it just sort of feels cheap, and in the end produces a boring product. Up next is the sequel to the space-based Wii entry that came out for the system in 2010, where there's two ads that I consider being the best for the game, which both show people living in small planet-like settings. I think the transition of people moving from planet to planet is really cool, making it seem as if it's Mario's world and we're just living in it. However, I do think this is just a really safe commercial at the end of the day, and it's unfortunate to see the drop-off in risk as clearly in the late 2000s, companies moved away from the goofy, weird content that once sold video games for them. Nintendo would perfectly blend Mario's 2D and 3D environments with Super Mario 3D Land for the 3DS, where there's 3 commercials that are amazing and we need to look at, starting with one that has a real-life person moving through the title's different environments. I really love the changes in perspective when the boy goes from 2D platforming to moving in the 3D world. And I get that the mix between real life and Mario characters are a bit overdone at this point, but this one is still cool to see. Now, one of the weirdest from this title that I have to show off stars Kim Cattrall of Sex and the City fame of all people, where she explains how she really enjoys her 3DS and Mario's become her main man that she can always find time for.
Her favorite. There are many men in my life, but for a few minutes or a few hours, I'll always find time for Mario.
I feel like this is a bit of a miscast, as this is a British commercial and she's a Canadian actress who is only known for playing relatively small parts. So could someone else have done a better job selling the system in game? Maybe, but at this point, who knows? The final I want to look at stars a man who enters a warp pipe and becomes a wacky real-life version of Mario. For some reason, there's dozens of these overall wearing plumbers that have invaded this particular part of Mushroom Kingdom. Also, seeing a Japanese man with a mustache like this is a weird sight, as facial hair is just something that generally they don't like to sport. Next, I want to look at one commercial that was made for New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS, which unexpectedly stars movie star Penelope Cruz and her sister Monica, who are enjoying the game together while hanging out by the pool. It looks like they're having some sort of competition, as the sisters are bickering a lot, and in the end, Penelope loses whatever they were playing for, having to dress up as Mario as some sort of punishment. I guess this is kind of funny, but also comes across as gimmicky, so I'm only really picking it as there weren't others to show, and it is at least entertaining. The final installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii U in 2012, which I won't lie, has the most boring commercials out of every title in the series, with the best maybe being the real-life Mario teaching kids how to play, but that's not even that groundbreaking. At this point in Nintendo's history, they sort of moved away from the traditional entertaining commercials in favor for just showing gameplay or an animated cutscene, which is fine but not memorable. Also, for the Wii U system, I noticed that a lot of the ads are just about explaining how the gamepad works, as at the time, the general public didn't seem to understand the system. I remember Nintendo really pushing the fact that you could watch TV and play at the same time, which is a cool idea, although in a streaming /YouTube /Twitch /Nintendo Switch /whatever else world, this isn't that big of a deal. Next is Super Mario 3D World, that first came out for the Wii U, then later was re-released for the Switch, where there's two commercials worth looking at, starting with the one where the two kids are petitioning their parents to buy them the system and game. Again, Nintendo was heavily leaning into the family-friendly aspects a co-op game like this one would provide. And even if it does look fun, no one bought the Wii U, so ads like this absolutely failed. There's also a similar one, but this time starring Disney star Peyton List and her family, all explaining how they love the system and how much they play it. This commercial sucks, but it's one of those so bad it's good kind of moments. And I really won't fault a young Hollywood star just trying to make some Nintendo sponsored dough. The other one I really liked was a Japanese commercial where a cute woman is puppeteering Mario and Peach dolls. Although this isn't a ventriloquist act, and I guess they're just there for cuteness. You can tell that Japanese ads are still slightly goofier, but something has definitely changed and they're toned down from what they used to be, which does suck, but what can you do? Hands down, the best commercial released for Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch is the one made for Russia of all places, showing how the player has grown over the years and how Mario has been a huge part of his life. This is something creative, unlike what the company's put out in quite a while. And I'm a bit confused why there was no Western version made, as I bet it would have killed with audiences near Christmas time specifically. I think it's also safe to say that the one where Mario visits the real world and dances to Jump Up Superstar is also good, with a human even getting captured by Mario via Cappy at one point, which is kinda weird. They even eventually released a full musical trailer that shows the entire dance sequence having a somewhat special cameo by Mayor Pauline herself.
Here we go, off the rails, but you know it's time to raise our sails. It's freedom like you never knew. New bags, all the past, say the word, I'll be there in a flash.
The final game we're gonna look at is also the most recent in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, where I'd have to say that the best commercial from it is a short created for TikTok, or I guess YouTube Shorts, or I don't know, Triller, which contains a confrontation between Peach and Bowser. What's so great about this one is that at one point Peach powers up into her elephant form, and Bowser sims even harder than ever for her. A meme that surely boosted the popularity of this title and helped it sell relatively well. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at CopyCatGamer. There I upload some cool clips and items for my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!